Joining us shortly is Adrian McLean, who's going to be talking about legacy and how to create a legacy through allyship and coalition building, a call to action for everyone who is listening today. Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great, thank you. Can you all hear me loud and clear?
All good. I will disappear and enjoy your presentation.
Okay, thank you for having me. So I'm going to break with tradition today, and normally when I speak, I don't speak with slides, but as I had planned originally a workshop for this in the live event, I felt there was some real things that I needed for you to all see visually. So here we go. So first and foremost, I want you to all think about, the importance of DEI. And our own perspective drives our performance. So the perspective and the lens that we look through is going to drive that performance, and we're going to see the world in very different ways. As you can see in the picture on the top right-hand side, they all see what's there in a different way. And the importance of what we do, it is held in sort of the foundation of that is the Equalities Act of 2010. But when we think about the moral and the ethical reasoning that sits behind that, that's not going to get the job done on its own. Because morally and ethically, we've known since the beginning of time that equity isn't there for everybody. It's never been there. And we have a huge fight on our hands to make sure that we continue down this journey and down this road to get to that point. As you can see on the bottom, the most prominent thing that I'm extremely angry about at the moment is what we've heard about Child Q and what's going on there. But that's another story for another day. But pertinently, that picture in the bottom left-hand corner of the yes, we can on one side of the wall, but we probably won't on the other. That's exactly where we are with a lot of people that we're in and around. We have to be the driving force to make that change, to change them from, yeah, we can do it, but we probably won't, to yes, we can. So where we are at the moment is that we're talking quite a lot in between the first two of those three pictures. We talk a lot about equality. Well, lots of schools, lots of organizations talk about giving everybody the same thing. That's not going to get the job done, as you can see from that photo there. We're now starting to transition into equity, whereby we get into the point where everyone recognizes that everyone needs different things and gets the support that they need to make sure that they're on that same footing as everybody else. But where we want to get to is the justice, whereby we remove the causes and the systemic inequality that's around. So I say this on this slide here. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to get a pen, some paper, or open your electronic devices to be ready to do what I had planned to do in the workshop. This is who I am. This is me, the advocate, the ally, the coalition builder. And I'm currently a director of inclusion and safeguarding for a multi-academy trust in the West Midlands. Note that there's an asterisk by the inclusion, because that will change into belonging. I'm a former head teacher and senior leader of 13 years of my 21-year career. And I'm now transitioning really into that education systems leader part, which is the next part of my legacy and how I'm going to help to drive change in the DEI sphere. I'm currently a vice chair of governors at a primary school, and I'm a safeguarding governor in a secondary school, trustee for governors of schools, and I also support and advocate for a number of organisations, as you'll see later on. But that was just a little bit to give you a chance to get yourself ready for what's coming next. So one of my favourite quotes at the moment, when I get to the point whereby I'm a little bit tired and I'm a little bit jaded and things are hard, and it's from Minky Johnson, the great motivational speaker. He says, what does not grow or blossom will surely die. And that's what keeps me going. If we don't keep growing as individuals, keep pushing the boundaries, keep blossoming and ensuring others around us do that, then we're going to die. We're going to fall flat. So in terms of legacy, what will yours be? And it's quite morbid to say this, but this is how I want you to think about it. You know, I'm talking to hopefully predominantly early career teachers, and I want you to start with the end in mind. I want you to think about writing your own obituary. What do you want it to say about you? When it's all said and done, what do you want those words that are being read out at your funeral, cremation, your passing? What do you want people to remember about you? What do you want people to say about you? So I'm going to give you a few seconds just to write that down to come back to later, because I haven't got time to wait for you to do that. Okay. So for us to get to that point, we're going to start today, and we're going to reverse engineer it. We're going to start with the end in mind. So the exercise I want you to take part in after this presentation, after this session, because there's 3 amazing speakers after me, is I want to start with the end in mind. What are you going to have, legacy are you going to have left when all is said and done? What is it that you've going to have inspired, changed, made to happen? So that's the first point. But then I want you to think about, where will you be in 3 years? Because what we often do is we often overestimate what we can to achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what we can do in 3 to 5 years. So where will you be in 3 years? I also want you to think about what's going to be different 1 year from today, March 26, 2023. What are you going to have done differently? How are you going to have started that legacy? Because as I'm going to outline now, we have to start with small steps, just putting one foot in front of the other, walking towards that final obituary vision. So where did I start? And this quote here sums it up perfectly. Don't be pushed by your problems, be led by your dreams. I grew up as an impoverished young person in inner city Birmingham and didn't have anything. I also happened to be of dual heritage, a person of colour in really trying circumstances at that particular time. I felt that I didn't fit at different points in my life, because I wasn't black and I wasn't white. So I didn't fit with anyone, and there was very few people around me that looked like me. So I wasn't pushed by that being the problem. I wanted to be led by my dreams, and my dreams were, without knowing and being able to articulate at that time, was diversity, equity, inclusion for all. And that led me into what I was doing. So where are we going to start for you, and what is your purpose? And Mr. T just done this brilliantly in the last section. What is your why? And this comes from Simon Sinek's book, and what is your why? Or start with why, rather. And I want you to think about why. What is your purpose? Why are you so entrenched in wanting to do diversity, equity, and inclusion? And you can't start with, oh, because it's the right thing to do. It's been the right thing to do since the dawn of time. And if that was as simple as that, then we would have had this solved a long time ago. So what is your purpose? What is your driving factor of why you do it? Then I want you to think about, what's your process? What are the specific actions you're going to do to make change in the areas that drive your why? And then finally, what do you want your results to be like? What do you want that to look like? When it's all said and done, when you look back on it, what do you imagine that to look like? So to give you some real sense of how to do this is my why, and my why's changed over time. So this is where I'm at right now. My why that drives me is my ancestors. My grandparents came to this country from Jamaica in the 1950s. They left a life behind of certainty to one where they didn't know anything. Remember, we didn't have the internet. We didn't know what the other side of the world looks like. My grandparents were told that the streets of London were paved with gold. You get my point. So they took a huge leap of faith, and they've enabled me to be where I am today, and the things that they had to go through to do that. My wife, my children, they drive me, and particularly my children. I have 3 daughters, and the intersectionality and the intersectional nature of them growing up and the things that they will face are different to mine. So I advocate, and I'm a huge ally for women, because I know the intersectional nature of them being of colour and also women is going to hit them down the road. And I want to improve that before they get there. I also want to do it for my future relatives that ain't even born yet. And most of all, I want to do it for the tribe, the people that I look around and I see around me that are with and trying to do the same work. How do I do that? Well, my job really is to open doors, or rather, as I tend to do, is to kick down the doors. I don't accept those doors being shut in my face. I don't accept them being locked and not allowed to be open. I'll kick them down one way or another, because I want to be in the room where it happens, where those decisions are made. Because it's important that I speak up for myself, people who look like me, and others of people with protected characteristics, because they don't always have that voice. Quite often, I'm the only person who's not of white origin in the room, and most of the time, there's not even a lot of women in those rooms either. So I use that privilege to open those doors. And what that says is it changes the word from impossible to I'm possible. It shows those young people and those people that are lower down in their on the rungs of the ladder, and those people that are new into the profession, it can be done, because I've already done. I've started to open those doors, and I'm going to hold them open for you. What have I done? I've provided inspiration. I've changed people's lives, changed the trajectory of where they're going to. I've started to help usualize the presence of people of color in authority, because I'm now an executive leader. So change, and that's change culture, ethos, and practice. So quite quickly, values and beliefs. Be yourself. That's the most important thing. And make sure that you use your level of privilege to grow your tribe, and therefore, when you grow your tribe, to be celebrated and not tolerated. And that's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. It's always wonderful to hear your experience, and such a role model for some of our ECTs coming through. I've got a few questions for you, because this is really important, fundamental stuff for educators. But there's a question in the chat that actually raises a really good question. It's this idea that schools are competing against each other according to checklists set by Ofsted. So how does this fit? How does your journey, your legacy, and thinking about these ideas fit with schools' competing needs in our current society?
So again, I've hit a number of glass ceilings throughout my career, and I've always wanted to just literally try to smash through them with those moral and ethical reasons to do that. I've learned that you can't do that all the time, and those competing factors are held by the majority. Let's be frank about it. So you have to be a little bit cuter in how you do that, and it's not easy. And I don't have a definitive answer, but one of the core things that I do, that are central to me really, is having the courage to continue to speak up and have those conversations, and keep having those conversations, and keep having those conversations, because they have to be had and people can't ignore them. I think the most pertinent point of that is getting your tribe together. The more people that you can get and the voices you can get together, so the better, because when it's just your one, it's very quiet, but when it's 20, 30 people, it can be quite deafening. So that's the best advice that I can give really to answer that question. We've got to change that moral imperative.
Yeah, it's the moral imperative. And I think that, for all of us doing this work, just because it's not codified in an Ofsted document doesn't mean it's not important to do that work. I think for some of our early career teachers listening to you, they'll be inspired by this, but some of them will be listening to your story and saying, well, look, do you know what? I don't come from a minoritized background. I don't have a disability. I'm not LGBT. Is it still important? And how is it still important for those people to do the work that you have done?
It's even more important in the long run, because all of us hold a level and degree of privilege at some point, and like I said there, we've got to use that degree of privilege to help others that don't have the voice. So using your voice to speak on behalf of other people, particularly the ones that don't get into the room where the decisions are being made and where it happens. So if you have seen what somebody from any of those protected characteristics is doing, and talking about the work that they're doing, the impact that they have, speak on it, because your voice will be heard as well. And often it's heard louder than some of the people from those protected characteristics.
It's leveraging power, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where your privilege sits, you can be influential in trying to kind of get these ideas heard, even if you don't have those protected characteristics.
Yeah.
So if you going back to the beginnings, the last question from me, going back to the beginnings when you started your career, was there anyone particularly who was an inspiration to you, who started you off on this journey?
No, not in an educational sense. The person that really inspired me on this was my granddad, because my granddad came here from Jamaica and he had to do all the menial jobs that nobody wanted to do, all the ones that he was allowed to do. And my granddad said, "Forget that. I'm not going to be like that." My granddad ended up being the first black publican in the West Midlands, and he broke down some barriers. So that's where I get it from. So he was my role model, because he just said, "I'm not accepting this. I'm going to do something that people said is impossible."
I love that. That is actually a really useful bit of advice in some ways, that if you don't have those role models in your own environment, in school, then actually look to wider society to see who's breaking down those barriers. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Adrian. It's been really
Most
interesting to
welcome.
listen to you, and hopefully
Absolutely.
people listening will get in touch. You've got your Twitter handle on there. Please do follow Adrian on Twitter to see his work.